Governor Brian Kemp. On behalf of the state of Georgia, I want to welcome you to Atlanta for your 10th annual meeting. As the #1 state for business, we have prioritized creating jobs and opportunity for all Georgians. Whether that meant cutting red tape to ease the burden on entrepreneurs and small business owners, or returning billions in tax dollars to the hard-working people of our state, we have taken action to support Georgians. I know you share that commitment to opening doors for all, a commitment that will help inspire future generations and connect our people with pathways to success. I hope you leave here with a renewed dedication to promoting growth and opportunity for all. Enjoy the meeting, and God bless.
Everyone who's been out here so far, are you having a good time? Learning a lot? It's almost like, who wants it to end? We don't want it to end. Well, the good thing is there's so much more great stuff coming up. I hope that all of the incredible guests are getting to you the way they are to me. They're changing lives. Operation Hope is changing lives for thousands of people each year. And next, we are honored to have the former U.S. Congressman, the former Director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and former White House Chief of Staff, the current co-chair of ACTM, the Honorable Mick Mulvaney. Yes, he is joined by Marion Phillips of the U.S. News and World Report and the co-chair of the Hope Global Forum's. Please give it up for the legendary Ambassador Andrew Young.
Where's Andrew? Here it comes. By there? Yep. Very good. Good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
You got it?
Okay.
Come on, young man.
Hello.
Very good.
It's good to see you again.
What is this, afternoon? No, it's good morning. We're glad to be here
Still
with
morning?
Mick. Yeah, it's still morning. I have to check too.
Okay.
We're glad to be here with Ambassador Young and Mick, and let's just talk a little bit about the future of economics and the economy related to growth. Both of you served in Congress. Both of you have had high-level administrative and executive roles. And so the first question for both of you is very simple. What's going on and what's the state of the economy?
The economy is at risk. It's doing well. I think it's doing better than I think a lot of us expected. Inflation is coming down. I think it's going well. The risk, however, is the debt. There's no question about it. If I could wave a magic wand and do one thing here today, though, it would be I'm really excited about what the president's doing with Elon Musk. I know it sounds crazy. The young people I talk to, the entrepreneurs, the regulatory environment in this country right now is holding them back. Young people have a desire to create, a desire to grow, or a desire to be adventuresome. And I can't tell you the number of them have come to me and say, look, it's just too hard to start a small business. I'm not talking about big tech firms. I'm talking about folks with billions of dollars. I'm talking about folks that want to open a restaurant or start a small business. And if we can fix the regulatory environment, I think that's one of the best things we would be able to do. We can talk about the $36 trillion of debt another time because it's just too depressing this close to Christmas, and focus on things we can actually do between now and, say, the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think you're right when you consider that 90% of our businesses are small businesses. Ambassador Young, what's the state of the economy?
Well, I think it's very, very good.
Yeah.
And but I'm looking from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about Atlanta, but it's probably true of a lot of cities, that we go back to Maynard Jackson and the airport. And that airport now is the busiest in the world. We didn't use any government money in it. We went to Wall Street and bought tax-exempt municipal bonds. I think it's about $17 billion that we've put into it, but no city money, no state money, no federal money. It's all operated on Wall Street and the city in cooperation with whatever airlines happen to be growing. It's mostly Delta now because Delta was around when Eastern went under, and they bought up all the gates that Eastern had. And so we have, if Georgia Tech is one offset point behind Georgia, that might mean we have the two best football teams in the country at the collegiate level. I'm saying that I look at things from here because this is where we have the controls. And the federal environment is necessarily good, and if we can slow down or stop some of these wars and put money into development rather than into destruction, and I think that that's liable to happen. I always, let me be honest, and I have been around here.
Were you lying to us just now, or?
Oh, I might have been. And I might have been because I tell you what my hopes and dreams are. And they're always for the best. But having been a mayor and a congressman, I know, what is it, snafu? Remember that term?
I know what it means, yes. We can't say it on stage, but yes.
But everybody, ask your neighbor what snafu stands for. And
Just don't say it out loud.
And but that's always with us. We are human beings. And the news media makes us good today and bad tomorrow. But it depends on what they feel somebody's mood is. The truth of it is, I'm 92 and a half years old. And I was born poor and didn't know I was poor. Yeah. And it didn't ever bother me that I was poor because everybody around me was poor. And it wasn't just black people poor. I was Irish on one corner. The Nazi party was on the second corner, the Italian bar on the third corner, and a Chevrolet dealership around the fourth corner. In New Orleans, Louisiana, in 1932, when Franklin Roosevelt became president. And one of the first things I remember is him saying, when the war broke out with Japan after Pearl Harbor, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that's a kind of American, it's not optimism, it's faith. And it was so segregated, I couldn't go to a movie without climbing up in a balcony, but I never felt that was, I never worried about it. If I wanted to see the movie, I climbed up to see it. If I didn't want to see it, I didn't bother. And it's, you change what you can change, and you live with what you can't change, and God helps you to know the difference. Yeah. There are lots of things that we have changed in my lifetime that I never thought we could have changed.
I call that generational opportunity, where we went from climbing up into the balcony to see the movie to the ability to be in front and behind the camera. But, Mick, you talked about small businesses. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
How do we, when we create a small business, we're giving generational opportunity as well as generational wealth, which creates stronger communities when you look at the social determinants of health. You've got to look at the community from an economic perspective. So from that mindset, let's not discuss the debt because we will be here a while.
Yeah.
But when we start looking at the debt, when we start looking at low birth rate, when we start looking at fewer students going to college,
The challenges you face?
there we go.
No.
How do we manage
But
that?
where are you? There are more kids going to college in Georgia than ever before. 60% of Atlanta's population has been to college. That is phenomenal. And that came out of the Hope Scholarship. And the Hope Scholarship came from a bunch of brothers on the street running numbers. And I voted for the Hope Scholarship in the lottery because my grandmama liked to play the numbers. And I didn't play the numbers, but my grandmama looked for the numbers, man, every day. And so if my grandmama did it, it must be all right. And sure enough, Granny was right. We got 60% of our population with college education. And no other city in the world can probably say that.
And that helps.
And that's, you all talked to the public school people just a little while ago. They're the ones that are responsible for it. It's not the universities. They're reaping the benefit now. But it was the kindergarten teachers and the first grade teachers. My wife is now at the funeral of a young man that she taught when he was in fourth grade. That's a healthcare problem, though. That's not a school problem.
Right.
And so it's probably, I don't know that there's a better place. And I think I've been to about 152 countries with chasing the Olympics and chasing after every place Carter sent me. And there isn't any place I'd want to go or be a part of but the United States of America.
Oh, that is
He's absolutely right.
Go ahead.
He's absolutely right. There's no question about it. But there is a challenge out there that I don't think we recognize. And it's the reason I come to this every single year, and I appreciate John inviting me to come here so I can say this one thing, which is that the younger people are struggling to do this. The younger people are struggling to talk to people that they don't agree with, that they are not aligned with politically. The two most depressing things I've seen, Frank Luntz was here the other night, and Frank gave a speech. I teach classes with Frank. I talked to a young woman after class one day. She said she would never be friends with somebody she didn't agree with politically. I was in a presentation the next night where someone said they thought that this particular group in Los Angeles, the police department, was racist. And that chief of police in African America was there and laid out all of the case for why what the kid thought was right was wrong. The facts were wrong. And the kid said, I don't care about the facts. I know they're racist.
So
if people cannot talk to folks they disagree with.
No, but who is not racist?
Race,
including me and you. That another way of looking at racism is ethnocentrism. That you're ethnically biased toward people that look like you.
True, but you have to be able to talk to those folks. You and I have had a nice
I'm saying, yeah, and but I grew up talking to everybody.
Yes,
and you especially want to seek out people that you disagree with because you might learn something.
And the younger people today don't see that.
And they don't see that, and I want to throw it back at my industry. Because in the media, many people go to the media that they confirm their beliefs.
Yes.
Not to inform their beliefs.
Right.
Which hinders the ability to have the conversation, a civil conversation.
And the ability to get facts
Correct.
that allow you to change your mind and change your opinion.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that bothered me the last year, maybe more than anything else, is I think one of the best things that ever happened to this city was the Olympic Games.
Okay.
And I realized the closer we got to the election, that most of the people who were on the Atlanta Olympic Committee with me were not going to vote the same way I would vote.
Yeah.
And that was a real struggle for me. Because these are people that, the people who put together the airport.
Right.
We didn't agree. In fact, one of the first conversations I had with the guy who was then the head of Delta was, I said, Atlanta's going to have an international airport. And he said, not in my term. He said, we are a regional airline with a few national routes. We will probably never go international as long as I'm around. And I said to myself, you ain't gonna be around long. but putting it closer to home, I got the same message from a wonderful guy who got Georgia State started. But Georgia State was a 400-person business school, and I talked to him about dormitories so that we could expand. He said, as long as I'm here, Georgia State will be a night school for people who work in Atlanta to get graduate degrees, and we will never have any dormitories. We now have 52,000 citizens in dormitories.
Wow.
And I thought that, Georgia Tech is the conservative school in town in many ways. And Georgia Tech now has 53,000 students. Wow. And they have more women engineers than any school in the country, more Hispanic engineers, and more black engineers are produced at Georgia Tech. And it's not what we're used to.
Are they teaching people to talk to each other? That's what worries me.
Probably not yet.
Yeah.
But they get drunk together. They
get drunk together. Okay.
They cheer together at the football game.
They do, but they don't get drunk together, and that's my concern. People are self-selecting for people that agree with them all of the time.
Yeah.
And how are you going to solve the challenges that we don't get a chance to talk about today? How do you solve Social Security, the debt, stop the wars, if you can't even sit down across the table from somebody and even talk to somebody that doesn't vote like you? That's what worries me.
Well, I was in the generation before the movement. And I was probably, I didn't even carry an NAACP card in 1947 at Howard University. And I was just trying to get my degree and get out of there, but then once I get out, I come here and they put me in a voter registration drive. And from then on, I was led, but I was a Republican then too. No, because all of the judges that made the decisions that were supporting us in the civil rights movement were appointed by President Eisenhower. And the Democratic Party prohibited blacks to be members till 1949. And I'm saying that I go into all of this bad history because we are young enough and yet old enough to realize that all of that is now behind us, and we're looking at a new world, and we're anxious about it.
So I appreciate that comment, and I think you're speaking to the fact, both of you are speaking to the fact of that we need to understand our past and how we did work together and how we can work together in the future. Mick, if you would close us out on what you think. I think the ambassador gave us a great understanding of working, what it took to get to this far. The colleges, the airport, vision. Close us out on what do you think it will take.
I want to have the last word, though.
No, he's going to get the last word. Everybody knows you're getting the last. So I'm going to give a short answer.
But see, we already knew that. That's why we're closing 10 minutes early.
People ask me, why do you go down to John O'Brien's thing? I said, mostly so I could just sit and chat with Ambassador Young. We've talked about this backstage. Look, we have to figure out a way. You accomplished so much because you were able to put your differences aside. If you and I disagreed 90% of the time, you are the kind of person that would focus on the 10% of the stuff that we can work together on.
And that's what life is.
It is, and I'm just hopeful. I'm seeing, partly because of the media, partly because many of us, including myself, are probably not the best parents we could probably be. We are not encouraging the next generation to do that. And people say, what do you worry about? The reason I worry about that is because we are not going to solve all of our problems before he dies, before I die, before you die. That we are going to leave problems to the next generation. There's no question about it. But are we leaving them the ability to resolve and solve those problems? That's the biggest challenge I think we face. And now we'll take the next 15 minutes listening to the ambassador close.
You and I got a flight, so we have 7 minutes.
Well, you know, I ended up getting hooked up with Martin Luther King. And I was at a voter registration workshop when John Kennedy was killed. And I thought it was the end of the world. And it was a bunch of folks from South Carolina and Georgia, and mostly older black people, who everybody just instinctively fell down on their knees and started praying. And it was one of them old-fashioned moaning and groaning prayers. And I thought that this was the end of the world. But 2 years later, almost everything we were planning for, Lyndon Johnson was working on. And I thought after we were working on South Africa, and when Ronald Reagan was elected, it put President Carter out. But before he left, Ronald Reagan signed the legislation that started the boycott that helped to get Nelson Mandela out of jail. And that's why I put my faith in democracy. And it's a biblical concept of democracy. Dr. King used to say over and over again, truth crushed to earth will rise again. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch over his own. And Ralph Abernathy used to say all the time, I don't know what the future may hold, but I don't care, because I know who holds the future. It's been in every part. Ray Charles, blind man, but he picked the third verse out of America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful, for heroes have already proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness and every gain divine. That's a country, that's a historic vision that we can all live with.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what we think is going to happen, I can guarantee you're wrong. Everybody from me and you to Elon Musk is playing God cheap. They don't know. And but we will know. And we will hopefully find out together and celebrate it peacefully, not only within these United States, but we'll find a way to include some kind of way of living with China and some kind of way of living with Russia. We took 3,000 people from Atlanta to Soviet Georgia because Russia had 16 votes on the Olympic Committee and Africa had 19. So we figured if we could get Africa and Russia together. But see, Ted Turner had taken the Goodwill Games to Russia from CNN. And so they welcomed us. And we got all of the votes from Russia. We got all the votes from Africa. And we picked up votes from just about everywhere else in the world because we brought people here and we let them see how it is that we live together, as different as we are, as crazy as we are, as ignorant as we can be, and as prejudiced as we are. But somehow we've made it work. And the other thing I want us to remember that when President Obama sang, what is it?
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace. They said on the television, this was the old Negro spiritual. Bullshit. Amazing Grace was written by a slave trader, a white slave trader who was selling black folk on a ship named the good ship Jesus. And when he got converted, he wrote Amazing Grace, and all of us sing Amazing Grace hoping we're going to get into heaven too. And it's by the grace of God and the mercy of God that this country achieves and arrives at its greatness, at its vision, and it comes from people like us who...
That's a wonderful Christmas message. Thank you for that.
Dr. King
So,
used to say
Ambassador, thank you.
we ain't what we ought to be. We ain't what we're going to be. But
So
thank God we ain't what we was.
So true. And on that note, thank you for listening to us, and we hope that you heard something that will encourage you and to move this country forward. Our leader.
Look at this.
Hey everybody, you enjoying this? We're bringing this home. Michael Milken is plane delayed because he wants to make sure he's doing one more session, but he's got to leave. Mick's got to leave. Mick doesn't have a plane, but he's got to leave. But, hold on. By the way, there are some politicians, as patient as I am, as open-minded as I am, there are some people that drive me out of my mind, frustrate me to no bejeebers. Mick Mulvaney's not one of them. Mick is a good man. If I have somebody on this stage, it's not by accident. It's intentional. When was the last time since the presidential election that you saw a prominent Republican and a prominent Democrat on stage together? My guess is never. This was intentional, and wasn't this beautiful?
Thank you. Merry Christmas. It's good to see you.